getting together when, at the last legislative session, a legislator shared an anecdote in the legislature, and he said, you know, we have too many goddamn mountain lions, and we need to have a year-round, no-limit hunting season for mountain lions. And it kind of made sense from a traditional standpoint in that they're scary. If you go out and you see a mountain lion, it's rare that you see one. They'll see you before you see it. And there was a lot of pushback, and nothing happened. And that was a big success. And the other issue, and one that I participated in last week, was going to the September Game and Fish Commission meeting when they were talking about a migratory pathway for pronghorn from the upper Green down into the Red Desert. And it looks like Game and Fish is, or at least the commission, is in strong support of designating a migratory corridor. And that may impact some property rights. And these are tough issues for Game and Fish. I mean, a lot of things that Game and Fish do are controversial.
Tact, always important, working and balancing not only ecosystem with humans and species, but politically as well.
And that's what, Game and Fish sometimes goes through kind of cycles, but they're kept constantly grounded by the fact that they have a highly educated workforce, probably the most highly educated department in terms of its workforce of any department in state government. And so I was struck as I was sitting in Lander last Wednesday, and there was a 4-hour discussion about how do we do this, what are negative consequences for oil and gas, what are negative consequences for landowners. And for 4 hours, hunters and regular citizens and conservationists came to the microphone, and I think almost without exception, I can think of maybe 3 exceptions, everybody said, we might lose pronghorn in this state unless we take this step. They've got to be able to migrate, and that means some consequences for some individuals, and it may mean some inconvenience. But I looked over at they project the logo of Game and Fish, and on that logo is a pronghorn. And I thought, okay, folks are on the right track. And it was a difficult decision, and I was proud of the Game and Fish Commission that they unanimously voted in favor of this. Now, it's not a done deal. It'll come back to Gordon, and Gordon will then make the decision as to where to go from here. But that was a tough decision.
You talk about not having pronghorn antelope in Wyoming, and it's not a statement to be taken lightly. In 40 years of observation as I travel, I remember trips to Riverton, Lander, when you would go just outside of Laramie towards Medicine Bow, you would see a sea of hundreds of antelope. And it was just, that was a Wyoming traffic jam, is slowing and watching. But you were in awe at how fast they were, how many there were, their athleticism swooping underneath fences and just doing what they do, but they all did it, and then to do it so tight to one another in this herd. And you don't see those herds.
Let me tell you a story. I came to the United States in 1978, and shortly after I came here and bought myself a car, which I could barely afford, I went for a drive and actually drove up from Fort Collins to Laramie, and then I went to the Medicine Bow. And I remember looking out the window, and I think I was driving across Big Hollow. And I looked out, and I thought, what the hell are those? And I was looking at pronghorn. I had never heard of pronghorn. I didn't know what they were. And I had a friend with me. I said, "What the hell is that?" And she said, "Oh, those are pronghorn." I said, "What the hell is a pronghorn?" And it was just part of my discovery that on the landscape, we had free-ranging herds of these animals. And I thought, this is amazing. And I had to go back and I had to look it up and I had to read about pronghorn and get rid of my ignorance, which is still there. But it was a reminder that America, North America, the United States, Canada, is so fortunate to have these animals and to have migratory pathways. And I was impressed. I thought, I thought of America as kind of cowboys and Indians. I didn't think of wildlife. Yeah. And I suddenly realized it's there.
You speak about having been in meetings last Wednesday. What comes next out of those meetings? Those are important discussions that happen. What evolves out of that time invested, Donna? What do you hope for?
Well, frankly, what I would hope for, but this is pie in the sky, and I'll be between two. I'll have been between two planks for a long time before this is done. What I would like to see is currently the Game and Fish Commission has traditionally been staffed by knowledgeable folks, typically drawn from the hunting community, the angling community, trapping community, taxidermy folks, and maybe the odd friend of the governor who just likes to be on the commission. What I would like to see is more scientific folks on the Game and Fish Commission and more conservationists. People don't realize that Game and Fish manages more than 800 native species in the state of Wyoming. But the focus is kind of on the big five, is on big ungulates, and the focus is on predators, and the focus is on fishing. We need to move past that. Whether you believe it or not, it's still happening. We have climate change. We have growth of populations. This summer, I drove across the United States from Laramie to Pennsylvania, and I was struck, and I'm always struck by this, how enormous this country is, but also how much we've changed it. I went by so many goddamn cornfields and soybean fields. I was thinking, wow, we've really changed this country. And we have, I think, in terms of tall grass prairie, maybe 4% of it left. We've wrought a lot of change, and it's gonna come back and bite us in the ass unless we restore some of those ecosystems. It's in our own interest.
And education of why that's so important needs to be ongoing, because it's soon forgotten. It's soon, the power of it's soon forgotten. You don't recreate these species just out of thin air.
And that's true. So I've, as someone who is a landed immigrant in the United States, one of the great good fortunes in my life was meeting people like Beth Williams. And Dr. Beth Williams was a colleague of mine in graduate school. And she's the person who discovered chronic wasting disease. And there's a long story there, which I won't bore you with. But Beth discovered chronic wasting disease and stuck with it throughout her career. And one time I was kvetching, as I often do. And I said something about ranchers. And she said, now look, she said, if we didn't have ranchers, and we didn't have ranchers who had a high level of tolerance for our wildlife, we would not have any wildlife. And she said, they're a key part of the equation. We got to be able to work with ranchers. And that was important for me to hear, and it's something I haven't forgotten. And one of the changes that we're seeing in Wyoming, as you well know, is we are slowly, maybe not so slowly, progressing from having a lot of working ranches to having kind of trophy ranches run by rich guys, and they effectively want to have their own kind of preserves, a little like the John Darrences of the world, and that's a very negative direction for us to move in. We need to have working ranches, and we need to have space for wildlife.
As families who have known generations of ownership of ranches and the operations of those, there's fewer and fewer being maintained that way. Some get bigger, some ranches are getting bigger, but that's a very small percentage in comparison to those that are getting broken up, subdivided, and as the subdivisions happen, that habitat becomes all more critical and precious, and it does affect 800 species, as you noted, in the state of Wyoming.
I think John Darrence, his ranch was something like 17,000 acres. It was a big ass ranch, and we have got a lot of really big ranches in Wyoming. And the only people who can buy these really large tracts of land are extremely wealthy individuals. So a lot depends on how we as a democracy manage our relationship with these individuals. If these individuals want to prevent corner crossing and so on, and if the courts rule in their favor, we've got a big problem. And we need to address that. So it's got a lot of complicated components, and Game and Fish is both part of the problem and part of the solution.
Donald O'Toole from YCAP is here to help domestic pets, wildlife, and livestock. You can contact Donald and his affiliates at wyocap.org. That's wyocap.org. Donald, we appreciate another topic covered on the Talk Shop. Any final closing comments as we wrap this segment?
Go in peace, and if you are lucky enough to see a mountain lion before it sees you, you are a very fortunate fellow.
Donald O'Toole, today on the Talk Shop, we appreciate the support of Perkins Restaurant and Bakery and H&R Block, reminding you it's Halloween coming up. It's the Super Bowl of Halloween. Trunk or Treat Laramie in the University Plaza, October 31st, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Sign up now. Trunk or treat at mail.com.